Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary.
And I'm Jess.
No Jeff today. No. As a matter of fact, I think I've brought in a Star Trek online expert with me today.
The best you know.
I'm hoping so. So, as you can see, I've got a couple of characters here, a couple of Federation characters that I've been playing around with. One of them I'm trying to push to 60. I've got a Klingon character that I've played around with as well. I've not played as a Romulan. And so, straight away, I'm already talking alien races. And so, for those of you that do not know Star Trek, then...
It's a broad church to kind of educate you on.
Exactly. So, but then again, is this game really for non-Star Trek players or fans?
I think if anyone likes a vast amount of content that is entirely free to play, I think you'll find that this game delivers. It's got great free content. There's no content gating. Every person who joins it, whether you want to pay a bit of money into it or not, you can play all the content. Yes, there are some slight edges to pay to win, some lock boxes, some here and there, but because everything's free, they have to monetize somehow, and it's not huge pay to win. It's what I'd call the gentlest slippery slope there is.
Okay,
it's not.
Well, this is from Cryptic Studios and Perfect World, I believe, and they're the same people that made Neverwinter.
Yeah, Neverwinter follows this in terms. It came out on the consoles first, but on the PC, Cryptic were owned by another studio in the stateside many years ago.
That's
and
right.
Then Perfect World, a large Chinese, I think, conglomerate, who run a lot of different computer games, bought them up a few years back. Sorry,
it's okay.
But then they kind of bounced back with the purchase by Perfect World, who are pretty good with their free-to-play genre games. So it's gone from strength to strength on the PC. Then they made simultaneously a console and PC version of Neverwinter, which offered the fantasy alternative to this game. And obviously got the licensing from Wizards of the Coast, who make the D&D tabletop kind of pen and paper roleplay game.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so just quickly, for people that are watching, I've just jumped into a couple of random queues. I'm jumping into hopefully into a PvP arena, which is my go-to game mode for playing this game now. If anyone's been following, I reviewed Star Trek Legacy, I think it was called, yeah. which was a game for me that I still replayed just because I enjoyed starship battles. I enjoy space combat.
This is fun. This is arcadey. This isn't going to be the Star Citizen, if you know what that is. The PC Mega Sim, or even the other one.
Well, there's what's it, Star Commander Star. Yeah,
you
said it. I've forgotten its name already.
Sorry, it's Star Citizen's little brother that nobody really talks about.
No, it is Star Citizen, and then
Star Citizen's already is coming out, but the one is already out is you want to say Rogue Squadron, but it's not. Elite Dangerous.
Yes, right.
Elite Dangerous is a more hard-edged simulator you can get on the next-gen consoles and PC, obviously. So, ignoring the controller disconnected on the screen, we're having small technical difficulties, nothing major. But this is a fun arcadey, but quite pleasant to play kind of space simulator, with ground simulator as well, which I always felt that I preferred this to Neverwinter because it gave you those two different play systems.
That's right. The
ground combat on this is a bit suckier. It's not terrible.
The first thing I noticed when playing this game was that the ground combat was hideously awful. In terms of
certainly not
gameplay, it is pretty terrible. It's a case of hold the left trigger to lock onto your target and hold the right trigger and hope that your accuracy will hit the target. But even the targeting system in the ground combat in this game is absolutely broken. In terms of when you aim the left trigger, unfortunately, didn't manage to get a match there. But when you aim with the left trigger, you will end up highlighting the floor, your defense turret, or your other away team squad members, other than the enemy.
I've played this on PC, to be clear. So there's different problems, and I'm not saying it's by no means. We'll probably conclude this more concisely, but it's not a perfect game. But it's the best of what I'd consider the free. Well, it's the best free-to-play MMO sci-fi game you're gonna play. I think. People are gonna say there's other options you can, but the game itself, you can get everything 99% of everything without paying a penny. You just have to grind it.
Well, that's it. This game is a free-to-play game, and for PC, when it's on its initial release, is about 5 years ago now. It was not a free-to-play game.
It wanted to be World of Warcraft, like so many other MMOs on the market. It just couldn't find a foothold. And to be honest, its publisher at the time, I don't think had the correct vision for it. And there were lots of other bumps in the road. And if I'm honest, I bought a lifetime subscription to it. And I played in the early access beta. And it was fun. But then for real life reasons, just didn't go back and play it. It happens. You unsub and forget about it. But I had lifetime subbed. So ironically, I was still subbed. But I went back to it many years later and found they were going free to play. And I still get lots of benefits for being a lifetime sub member. And the game hadn't changed vastly in the 2 years or so. 3 years, I can't remember how long the gap was, but it hadn't changed vastly. The content hadn't been volumely added in masses, but then they started putting out pretty fast and steady updates, and they've been keeping that up consistently for the last few years now. And it's a game that almost has the episodic feel of Star Trek, which is something they were trying to mimic with the early DLC, but now they kind of almost do constantly give you the feel of previously on. And it's and to its pros and cons of Star Trek, if you do know the show, it has writing that swings from quite concise and intellectual to a little bit daft, and this has definitely got that kind of bipolar swing of consistency varies a little bit in the game.
One of the big attractions for me that I really like about playing through the story, now I came onto this game on my own and started playing it on my own, and then eventually I got a couple of friends and we were able to co-op all of the missions.
Yep.
Granted, there are a few missions which are strictly solo gameplay only, but 95% of the game you can play co-op with a group of players, and that definitely makes the game a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. However, when you're playing with a group, often or not, you'll find that a lot of people will skip through the dialogue, skip through the cutscenes, just to get straight back into the gameplay.
I've played this. I have a lot of characters that have played through the story a lot of times because having the lifetime subs I log back on after a few months off and I get a ton of Zen. So I've ended up with lots of characters that I've leveled over time. So for me, if I'm playing with like my friends I'm trying to get into it online or play more casually than I do, I will ruin the story for them because I'll know where I'm going, I'll talk to the NPC, I'll accidentally skip cutscenes when I'm trying not to. But
yeah,
it's a game that is interesting and the cooperative functionality is there, and it does its damnedest to make you all play with other players. I mean,
yeah.
Is this PvP?
No, this is a PvE encounter. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a PvP queue to go, so...
PvP is something interesting. On the PC version, if anyone knows of it, it's dead. It's not... Dead's cruel. It's incredibly polarized into a high skill cap. It's been going for so many years, and the truly hardcore have turned it into a precision art, which means that they try their best to get it more accessible, but without an entire reset and overhaul of the system where maybe separate ships or separate builds for those ships where everyone gets a more even playing field. It doesn't really work.
You nailed it right there with the even playing field, because the ship that you have built, the level that you are, the crew that you have, the weapons that you have equipped, everything that you are goes into PvP. And so there are, there's the tier 6 ships, shall we say. When you start off, you get to level 10, 20, you start with the tier 1, tier 2 ships. And then as you develop, you move up to the tier 5s, and then after that the game does give you every 10 levels a free ship, so you get an upgrade, you get to figure out,
and you get to choose from a science, an engineering or a tactical ship to complement what class you've chosen, because you can choose a class to appropriate to each of those.
That's
or your
right.
Style. You can be a science officer in an engineering ship. You'll get different bonuses and different abilities tied into that. And the combinations that you can build, especially on the PC version, which now has been out so long with so many different consoles, that things that you can plug into your ship to affect statistics and give you cooldowns, and different crew and bridge officers, and it all adds up into a complex, very complex to its credit, game. But I don't feel that capitalizes on it very well, because there's so much that the people who've been there a long time and know which items were particularly good. Like I've got something called a red matter. It's relating to the original film, red matter capacitor. It was the red matter from the reboots. in Star Trek with the new crew, where they put the young Kirk and young Spock and
Yeah.
all of that. Red matter capacitor. It's a very powerful console, which gives you a boost at all energy levels.
Okay,
It's
so
only available from a special edition, actually. That was a special edition of the
right.
game.
Now, obviously, we are looking at the console version, which is about 3 weeks old, so it's almost in its infancy, and it is at the stage where obviously the game is free to play. And I was kind of surprised to see this game available on console, and because of really MMOs are the playing field of PCs, and that sphere of gaming is changing, and console players are finding themselves playing MMOs for the first time, and by just sitting at the Earth sort of command station and just watching the chat and watching players figure their way around for the first time, because it can be a pretty daunting task, because most console games are streamlined straight away for a console player, so you know where your power-ups, your buttons are, where all of your commands are. Now, just as an example, in the bottom right corner here, you can see you've got the X, Y, B, left trigger, left bumper button. And each one of those, if I press one of those, that corresponds to the active power that's there. However, if I hold the B button, it brings up the wheel of all my other commands, and that's the same for each of the other buttons. So you can see that there are a lot of abilities and cooldowns. Now, there is a great feature that the console version has, which is that you can press the right bumper button on each one of these commands, and you can see that they've got a little green box around them, which means each one of these abilities of mine are set to auto-execute as soon as they are able to, which means I don't have to keep pressing the Y button, then toggling around the wheel and pressing every button possible.
On the PC, it was the same. It was a single bind key you could have for fire everything. There was another option to fire all torpedoes or fire all beams. You could split it into 3. So essentially, beams. When I say beams, any weapon that is in a torpedo.
Yeah, well, you might want to be a bit more tactical depending on how your weapons are. You don't want the computer or the automatic systems deploying your photon torpedo boosters before your torpedoes are ready to even fire. So yeah, you might want to check what powers you have, and literally having those abilities, and depending on which ones you pick and choose, really will impact on how much fun you're going to have playing the game. Because there's a few missions which you will need a certain few abilities. Like I always tell everyone that the beam fire at will is incredibly useful at shooting down torpedoes.
Yeah, absolutely, it's defensive.
And so, but there are a ton of upgrades and different systems that you can have. Now, but to break down the space combat, and the reason why I'm enjoying it so much and spent most of my time just playing PvP, is that it comes down to the ship type, whether you're a tankier ship, whether you're a fast flying ship, whether you're what do you call them, a beam bank, or whether you're tacked out with torpedoes. And also depending on your play style. Yeah, now, there are for instance, there are 2 different types of beams. You've got the beams that can fire, I think it's like 250 degree arc.
Yeah, tighter arcs give lower damage.
Right.
More high damage. The tighter the arc, the higher the damage.
Yeah, well, then you get like beam banks, which is like a 90 degree spread, but it's a few hundred more damage per second. Or
and then
DPS.
You've got cannons, which are the highest damage, but they're single target. And it all comes down to the balancing of the game is very interesting. Like, ships matter a lot as well, because some of them will have special abilities. You're on a Cardassian.
I'm in a T6 Cardassian Kelvin cruiser, I believe.
This is a lockbox
which
ship.
is currently a lockbox reward ship, which I've opened 1 lockbox in this game. I'm not going through lockboxes again like I've done in other games, because I think most of the time they're thankless, and my random drops in things like that are so terrible that I'm just going to accumulate my money to actually buy the content within the game that I want, because I'm a poor person and I will not spend money on this game, but I am going to get the enjoyment out of it that I like, which is the ship combat. I've been able to fly a classic sort of original Enterprise era Constellation ship. I've managed to fly an Intrepid Voyager style ship. I've flown around in an Enterprise Sovereign class ship before getting to the ship that I'm in now. I'm doing absolutely terrible to help my teammates here. I know this, but
it is a game that requires a surprising amount of focus. It is The objectives, the three-dimensional combat. It is a very clever game. This is, as we said, not a hyper-realistic space simulator, but it's got enough intricacy that I feel it stands on its own 2 feet. If this ground combat was up to this standard, I think you'd find this is a game which would unanimously be loved. But I think it's a good, solid game that I think if you love Star Trek and appreciate the kind of amount of cameos they get from real former cast members.
That was one of the other things, is that I think I lost count at how many former cast members from the show came back. I'm just going to try and I think you've got almost the entire cast of Voyager. We have Tuvok, Neelix, Seven of Nine, Ensign Kim, I think, became Captain Kim.
Yeah, they brought this on a few years as a set after the events.
It's like 20 odd years after Voyager, I believe. Got, which is also great for a big Star Trek fan like myself to go and see, because it's been so long. Star Trek has been so absent since the reboot in the alternate universe. I'm really excited about the new Star Trek TV series, Discovery.
Next Generation.
They got Michael Dorn for Worf. They brought back, I've forgotten her name
when
now.
it launched, you had, obviously, most importantly, Leonard Nimoy.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Zachary Quinto didn't voice his version of Spock, but he does introduce the game, and I think play
that's right.
One of the hologram. He's the hologram at the very start of the game.
And just as a Star Trek lore, I got to fly around space, and then I came across the wasted battleground of Wolf 359, which of course everyone knows. The battle that happened there, where I think the Federation lost like 30 odd or 60 odd Federation ships. It was an absolute disaster. But you can go there, and it's just a deserted, just all these destroyed ships, and it was just one of those moments where you're just like, wow, I'm in this place. It was also great. I also flew to Vulcan and landed on the planet and found the statue of Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh wow, and especially considering such a fabulous actor and such a icon of Star Trek has passed away this year. It was, and of course Star Trek is 50 years this year as well. And so it was great just to stand there and look at that statue for 5 minutes and just have a few minutes silence for Leonard Nimoy.
It is one of those games that has been around so long now. It almost has its own internal kind of history. There's various functions that have been built into it. As I said, this has been a game. It was developed, it was released, and then it was redeveloped again. So the structures, like in the console version, they haven't added things that I'm used to in the that have been perhaps in the PC version for an awful long time. Like I was speaking about with duty officer systems and the reputations tied to them.
That's right.
And that's quite a big thing.
Just very quickly here, I will show you guys that there is a reputation system that's in the game currently, where you will, as you can see here,
this was added after to some extent.
So this wasn't here in the original release.
No, this is the duty. There was a rep sort of system. It was tied to repping up diplomatic and other statistics. There was a bar system for that, but that's tied. Was swapped around with the duty officer system introduction. Without going into a great history of it, there are things they're planning to bring to the console version eventually.
Yes.
And yes, there is a kind of collectible functionality to the duty officer system, which again, it's another monetizing way, but they also have many ways of you get grinding those heroes. Your crew.
That's the thing. I have to ask you, Jez, how much is the grind worth the payoff in this game?
I think it comes off. I mean, it all comes down to whether or not you're enjoying it. And I mean, you've come into the ownership of a rather nice ship early on. I mean, for me, I kind of always had them because, as I said, because I had when I started the game, I played it naturally like everyone else. Then I came back to it years later and I had all this in-game currency called Zen, to be clear. It wasn't always called Zen, it was something else. That's Zen's tied to Perfect World. It was cryptic points or credits, I can't remember at the time. But then essentially I bought the ships I wanted because there's a large volume of things you can buy. Now, to be clear, if you've played Neverwinter, the same systems, which Neverwinter ironically copied from this, are in place. So you can grind in-game currency called DILITHIUM.
That's it, DILITHIUM, which is of course a Star Trek,
resource, and obviously fuel for the ships. But in this one, you can then turn that into the Zen points, which are obviously the store points. And in doing so, you can then spend it to buy things on the store. Almost anything is available. I think everything bar the lifetime subscription, which does encourage you to spend.
So we have the C store, which is, as you can see here, a lot of it is Zen. Now, just looking at those there, 8,000 Zen is not going to happen overnight in
No.
this game. It's not going to happen even in months.
There are tricks to why. Well, you might do it in months, but there are tricks to, if you're going to spend a little bit, there's ways to grind the dilithium efficiently.
I'm sitting on 56,000 ore, and I have 16,000 refined, and I can only refine 8,000 of that a day. Now, when I go into the exchange market, as you can see right now, I'm trying to sell some at 248, but right now, for a single Zen, one Zen, it will cost you 247 dilithium.
Yeah, the prices do fluctuate quite a lot, depending on new content comes out. People are then selling their dilithium to buy Zen. And people who play these markets can turn huge profits. I know, Gary, you got quite good at that in Neverwinter.
In Neverwinter, yeah, it was a case of buy it when it's cheap and sell it when it's expensive, and you'll make a few 100,000 or just a few hundred Zen even, depending on what you're starting with. But at least when you're playing this game, until you really reach level 60, you don't. If you're just playing through the story, the game gives you enough ships and enough content to keep you entertained and keep you focused.
Yep, and they do giveaways now and then. They do regular seasonal events over Christmas and summer. They'll historically give you, at least on the PC version, I'll assume it'll happen on the console version, a chance to just grind like a quest each day for 25 days or something.
Right.
15 to 20 days, to 5 days, and you'll get a tier 6 or whatever equivalent top tier ship of the era at that point for you. I mean, I've not missed one, and I've got all the different event ships they've released over the years since they went free to play. And yeah, it's good. It's a game that definitely has kept me interested. I mean, it's a game that I can walk away from and not feel too tied to, but I come back for the events generally, and it's something to keep you engaged. And it definitely rewards you, because like it's a game that encourages you to make alts. I mean, like a lot of the events that I said.
So just to be clear, that means additional characters, alternative characters, and for the purpose really of doing the exact same event again in order to get items. Now, for me, that is a big turn-off. Because it's a case of, I've got my one character, I've got my one ship, this is who I am in this game. I don't also want to be Tom, Dick, and Harry, and then go and do the exact same thing.
To their credit, they have made an effort. The Klingons do get, I will say, a little neglected, because obviously everyone wants to play the Federation. So they always try to balance the PvP on that problem, always showed up, which was they could never play as many Klingon players to Federation players. So you always have PvP queues being a bit skewed.
Well,
and let's be honest, as I said,
you will face Federation against Federation in PvP.
They had to change it in the middle of years, and that it's cool, but it's always an indictment in a sense. They designed a PvP system early on that was broken. On the console version, they've gone into it better from the start. As I said, they're still, I think, coming to terms. The PC community aren't fully behind it. I think they'd need to maybe do a full relaunch one of these days, where they maybe, as I said, review the way technology, all these people with years and years of stuff having a somewhat unfair advantage. But the point is, the game as a whole is mostly rewarding. And I said the different characters, I was going to say the factions, because we've got Klingons and Federation. There are two primary factions. There are Romulans who can choose a faction and be either, which is obviously nice. It means, but you still play through a unique campaign story arc for those Romulans. Obviously, not going into too much detail to not spoil it, but it's obviously at 20 years on. It does follow the actions of Spock in the reboot of Star Trek. So the destruction of Romulus.
That's right, yeah.
So the Romulan Star Empire is in disorder, and it is civil war to an extent when the game, as you play through this story, and that is explained, and they attempt to kind of resolve it again. The maths of canon, and if this is canon, I mean, there's nothing else written in this universe, so this is advancing the Star Trek canon as far as anyone can. It's still, to an extent, I'd assume, some level of fan fiction. I don't think it's entirely ordained by the powers that run the TV shows. Although the new TV show I've heard is set nowhere near this point in history. It's set way back
before Kirk. It's like 10 years before Kirk.
I thought it was after
Kirk.
Kirk.
It's before.
Oh,
it's after Archer.
After Archer, before
Kirk.
So yeah, but they're doing every season's going to be a totally different setting, maybe in the future, maybe in the past of Star Trek. So it allows them to jump around and explore different ideas. But that's off subject a little bit. But the point is, this is it to an extent, moving the story forward and pulling back all the different characters. I mean, in the update that hasn't yet to hit the consoles, they go back to the classic TV show and do a time travel adventure, and you play a captain from the past. and that's explained, and they even give you a free character slot for that. Normally they charge like 500 Zen, as you saw the equations for Zen. They'll give you free character slots so you can engage in these new events where they've done entirely new story missions just for those limited time only characters. So it's very good, and the time and effort they put into it, and there is a lot of authenticity to the game. They really care about, like, in that particular role, you can only play one of like 4 Federation races that were in the original TV show.
Right.
So yeah, it keeps authenticity. I chose an Andorian because I hadn't had an Andorian yet.
Yeah, and that's to say that you can't just build your character and the ship. You have to build up your bridge crew and your away team as well, because they will give you the traits and the abilities that you will equip to your ship. And so, if I can just quickly get past this briefing, thank you very much, Tuvok.
Yeah, that's Tuvok.
If I just go to my ship here, as you can see, this one here is a T6, and this one is different. As you can see here, I have my 4 aft weapons devices, shield deflector, impulse, warp, engineering consoles. Obviously, I've got a space for another engineering console there. I need to check that out. And as you can see here, I have a lot of beam weapons, as well as torpedoes. And down here, I've gone for a lot of additional beam support in my consoles. But there's something about the T6s which make them extra special, is that they have a mastery, which will also unlock additional traits, which you can then unlock to equip to your
I'm trusting
commander.
you on this one. I'm PC learned, so I'm kind of looking at the screen whimsically, going, where are they hiding what I normally expect? Yeah, so essentially, your character has like a skill tree, for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
When you get to max level, there's another skill tree, and then on top of that, there's a trait tree.
So space skills, ground skills, and traits.
Yeah, the traits, as you can see,
specializations, and so there is a lot.
That's the prestige system. Essentially, when you hit max level, specializations kick in, which essentially is you prestige every time you fill up a level.
Well, from level 50 to 60 in this game, you get a specialization point,
and then when you hit 60, then there's a bar of XP you just keep filling up again.
Yeah.
It's clever. I mean, the game, as we said, has got so much depth and complexity. And as you see there, another thing to point out, like I've been playing it for years on the PC, so you end up with so many options that it's interesting, and that's why I think competitive play would need to, if I'm honest, on the PC at least, need a massive overhaul. But on the console, at least they can go into it with everybody having an even playing field. Obviously, the more tier 6 ships you own, the more trait versatility you'll get. So then there is, again, the more committed players, or the more... Well, you still need to be committed, because you could buy 10,000 of all those tier 6 ships on the store in-game, but you still need to play them, because the XP bar does not fill up quickly. These ships need consistent time play. You've been playing with this ship how long?
I've been playing with this ship for about 2 days.
2 days.
But I've played about 6 hours of PvP straight. I am so addicted to the PvP.
And you're still not max, so if you're looking at that, it might take you 8 hours, so a couple of days work just to level the ship up.
And I can just say, for those of you that are getting into the game, and you know, when I first jumped into PvE, I got smashed. I had people trash talking me in the chat, telling me how terrible I was. And you know, I was just like, "Calm down, please." I just got on the game. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning, and there is with every game, with every online system, there's always going to be trash talk. People get upset when they lose. I've seen people quit matches. You know, it's just been left to me on the team, and there's like 4 enemies, and as soon as I spawn, I'm getting destroyed, and I'm like, well, why do I even bother spawning? It's like, well, I have to in order to get the game over with, but at least I just take it and then move on. And since then, I've been upgrading and selecting, and you know, I've not had to look online once to look at how to build my ship. Or how to build what I've been looking at.
No, as I said to you before, your ship build, ignoring the missing console, noob.
Well, yes, I thought I had something equipped there. I think I must have unequipped it somehow.
But anyway, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you're in a pretty heavy-duty ship. It'll survive. But the thing I'll say with this game is there is min-maxing. There are functionally advised builds. As I said, mentioning the beambank kind of design is one PC phrase that's used for certain build structure. Yeah. But even that's not even really descriptive of the variables, because you've got so many different energy types.
Exactly. So I said beam weapons, but then as a matter of fact, I think there's like 3 different types of beams. There's the Polaron, anti-proton,
plasma, phaser. I could go on, but I think there's 1 or 2 more. But ignoring that, they keep adding more depth and complexity. You can choose one type. You can choose all types. Then you've got the tactical consoles, which can boost specific energy types or weapon types.
Yep.
So then you have the choice: do I go for a mixed set of in the phaser banks, which offers me more variety in breaching different forms of defenses, or do I specialize in one and then boost it as high as I can?
In the very short time that I've been playing the game, playing the PvE content and going from standard difficulty to the next difficulty up, there's a big change, and that is you need to know who you're queuing to fight. And so if you've decided you're going to go and fight the Vaudois, for example, you do not want weapons that are very good at taking on the Borg.
No.
Because you're limiting yourself and you're crippling the amount of damage or defenses that you might otherwise have. So
I don't know if it's got it on the
suggest,
PC. You actually have build option. You actually have. I don't know if you've got it in this. You have builds.
So you can change load. Okay, I have not discovered that on the console version yet. Maybe it's something that will come in a future update. So right now, when I'm queuing for a harder difficulty, I will make sure I'm fighting either the Voth or the Undine, and I will change my loadouts accordingly. I don't have that many weapons right now, but it's just something I've started to do, and I've noticed it saved me plenty of times already. So that's just something, just as a pro tip.
The one thing I say about this game, above all else, even if you don't want to do what we're saying, the story's fun, it's free to play, none of the content's restricted. You can play through the whole... How many hours do you reckon it's just playing through single player content? Well, which you can play multiplayer a little bit if you want to co-op with a friend, but as we don't skip.
I would honestly say that there's got to be at least 50 hours of
just
story content. Yeah,
maybe more, because I think some of it is actually fairly tricky.
It also depends on whether you are, because you could. I also skipped. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I skipped huge portions of the story because a lot of it just didn't interest me too much. I was kind of eager to level up and get on with the mission and move on. But a couple of the missions I've kind of gone, oh, that's interesting, that's cool, I can't believe they did that with Star Trek, and revisiting old locations of Star Trek. So as a fan of Star Trek, I loved it. Some of the content in there that's made for me, I didn't like it. The ground combat, I think really in the early part of the game, so maybe the first 50% that you're playing in the game, I'd say the space and ground combat is split 50-50. When you get to the end game stuff, you really get to choose. Do you want to go on a ground mission or do you want to fight in space?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's now become about 90% space battles, 10% ground stuff.
I mean, like I said, and the single player missions reward you nicely. They again give you nice bridge officers. You got a Jemadar the other day.
That's right. I have
PC,
a Jemadar.
That's normally
officer.
An event reward. Maybe it was an event. Again, I don't know. Without full, digging through all the patch notes on this, I won't be able to tell you.
Well, yeah, like for instance, this consoles don't have Starfleet star bases yet.
No, that's all coming in the future.
Exactly. So for a console player, we've got a lot to look forward to, and I think that there's already enough content in here. And one of the biggest things I have to say about it is, it's surprisingly fun.
Yes.
And hours literally zip by so quickly, and even though I have a lot of criticisms with it, I have not played a better space fighting game in quite a while.
Yeah, it's easygoing. As I said, it doesn't tie you into anything. It's not draining your wallet of money. It's one of those games, I say, with any free-to-play game, if you play over a certain amount of time and you have the cash, give them the cash, because you want games like this to exist. There are worse games out there where they gate the content behind paywalls, and then you've kind of splitting your community. I remember Knights of the Republic, the MMO. EA limit the number of times you can play space battles. Again, I think there's been some changes recently, but I don't think they've reviewed all of it. They made all the single player content eventually free, and so all players could play with all players. Because if you split your community between rich and poor, it hurts everybody, because your PvP queues are longer because there's less people to queue with. If less people, you can't queue, you can only play 10 matches a week. I think it was on Star Wars Knights of the Republic.
That's a real travesty. I don't understand why they would do that.
They changed it, I think, later, but I'm not sure. I haven't gone back to it in a while. I mean, MMOs in a whole, I think free to play, there's good and there's bad models. Some have become too heavily pay to win, but because I said PvP is a option in this.
Yeah, you don't have to do it at all.
So
I do it
barely play it on PC, because either your games are dominating if you go and build,
especially if you go in against a pre-made team. If the whole team is queued up against you, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and then therefore, it's not going to be too much fun at all.
But the fun is the challenges, the PvE challenges in the game are competitive in some of the survival
Yeah.
what people know as the Horde mode of like Gears of War.
Exactly,
There's some
yeah.
amazing wave survival modes built into the end game of this, where you do truly get some real challenges.
That's what I'm looking forward to, because that's something I have yet to experience. And there's something I can also say is that it's sort of a safety barrier for players, is that dying in this game, leveling up from 0 to 60, dying in this game, whether you're dying on the ground combat or whether your ship explodes, no problem. When you play on the harder difficulties, which obviously means better rewards, if you die in space combat, your ship can suffer sort of semi-permanent crippling injuries unless you have the gear in order to fix it. And you can fix it straight away. Once you've respawned after blowing up, you can go straight away and fix your ship, which is fine. It just costs you a small amount of currency, which isn't really much of a handicap, but it's just something there if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, it's only when you hit elite mode or higher difficulty.
Yeah.
The two higher to cap difficulties. And that affects you in ground and space combat. You can take the injuries on ground combat as well. I've fought some very hard mode. Borg Queen, if my memory is correctly.
Yeah,
She's got ground combat. The game's gone through so many iterations. I have moments where I kind of forget which version of which mission, because this is something you're probably not. Again, you're not going to know about if you play the console. The missions have been overhauled several times. Different missions have had their graphics upgrades on them. Levels have had better skyboxes built into them, so beforehand it would look terrifyingly bad. I mean, if you can get some early screenshots of this game only a few years back, some of the missions were dated badly.
Yeah.
But now they've tightened it up.
I was going to say it's almost they've redone the engine to make it look better, so that I think in some instances in space, this game looks absolutely beautiful. The ships from the show are absolutely recognizable. When I see the Defiant class ship there, I get excited and I'm like, wow, I know that ship, and I know.
But obviously, if you look around,
like.
At the moment, there's a Romulan battle cruiser. No, they're MPC.
You can sort of see on the left side there the friendly ships that I have, and it looks like there's a bunch of Klingons and maybe two
there is a
Federation
Romulan.
ships
No, you
out
got a
there.
There's a Romulan as well.
Yeah.
Third ship down. But they look magnificent. They've designed some ships in honorific to other ships.
Yeah.
Like you've got the ship from Nemesis, which was flown by Shinzon.
Shinzon, yeah.
Shinzon's ship. There's essentially that ship, sort of. I mean, the licensing, I think, is for the TV shows predominantly, but they'll play honour to some of the things they don't have license for. Again, my memory is a bit hazy on that. I don't, again,
Yeah,
it's finer details.
The beam effects, the particle effects, the ship explosions, absolutely. Watching torpedoes bounce off of shields, and I just love it. It's there are some instances where it's so crazy, where there's literally hundreds of beams flying everywhere, that if you are a sufferer of epilepsy, then
might be very risky, this game.
Yeah, it might be very risky.
It is. I'll be honest. I've got one ship where I refer to it as a discotheque in space, because the abilities it fires, I think it just gets crazy, and I'm like, I'll fire, and it's just like, what's going on? I have no idea, but everything's dying. It's fun. I mean, there's some wonderful kind of sci-fi glory to this. I mean, as we said, there will be more realistic, more tightly controlled games, more like Star Citizen, or even Elite Dangerous. But this game is the finest in just being. I don't want to be derogatory to it by saying it's casual, but it's more relaxed in its design. It's more pre-planning. It's one of those strategy games, because you build your ship for the strategy, and then you let it play out in front of you instead of having a beat-by-beat control over every micro-action. The ground combat's a bit tighter on beat-by-beat actions. Yeah. But then again, the ground combat has innumerable other issues I have with it, and it is a bit clunky, the ground combat. That's probably honest. But it still looks nice. Your character design is amazing.
Yeah.
Your ship looks lovely. Your character design, if we can get when Gary exits this match, your characters look really good. And on the PC, they look even a little bit better on top-end rigs. But it is a good game. I mean, in the visuals, as Gary said, space detonations, you can see the ships exploding in space. They all look very wonderful.
Yes, yeah. I was, for a free-to-play game, for an MMO, I always consider MMOs to be the ugly games because of the amount of vast content that's in there.
Yes, you don't want to have too.
There was limitations with it.
They've limited by limiting so many people can be in one place at any given time, but they're still in the 50s to 100s area. I think I think it's 50 actually in every zone. So if you look around where Gary's ship is now, you'll see only so many vessels. It's to kind of limit your computer or console melting, because the details, especially in ground level, is your characters can be so vastly customized. I don't know if you want to go down to the ground just to
just so we can have a quick
just because the last thing is just to say it is a lovely Spacedock is the The original Space Dock, again, it's one of those things if you want to go and have a look at it. The original pictures were ugly.
It was looked 2D.
Yeah,
very originally.
It was ugly. They re-updated it last year before. Oh god, it's been like that for maybe 3 years. But this was never massively updated. I think they did the Skybox, but this was free stuff. Yay!
That was just my reward.
Undine marks, as we said, these are all useful resources. And mark systems to do with that can unlock you more traits, because I think
that's right. The reputation system.
Yeah, reputation system give you more traits. Ships give you another set of traits. As we said, there's lots of complex levels to this, and I mean we can't go into all of it in great detail because I could talk for hours on end about how you've got to build this and build that, and different officers want different sets. As we said, there's tactical science and engineering, and the ships are tactical science and engineering, and you'll want different builds for each of those ships, for each of those officer types. So you've got like 9 different builds potentially across one ship, essentially. It's just madness. But as you can see, I don't know how close you can zoom in.
I can't really zoom in.
I go to a wall.
Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah, and spin the camera. Sorry. Can you?
You want to look at the textures of the wall?
No, your face.
You can't spin around. It's kind of broken. So you just spin. You just spin on the spot.
Give me a minute. I'm gonna see if I can trick this.
No, don't worry. It's already. There are a few people have already complained that you cannot hold your character still. It kind of seems a little bit wonky.
This is a console problem.
Yes, and there's another issue with the fact that a lot of people have complained that you cannot invert the spaceship controls. So that if you're not a fan, you either get used to it or you're fucked. And that is something else that that's sort of, it's almost fundamental, really.
Yeah, that's not that little. No, you're right.
No, for me, the flying control is exactly how I would like it and need it to be. But for other people, where they prefer up to be up instead of and so it can be a huge mental block. And for a lot of people, it's a straight off turn off. No, I'm not going to play it because I cannot fly my ship properly.
It's a shame you can't get one of you.
And the fact that that's not an option is really stupid and something that needs to be fixed.
See if you can find a stationary member of public. Then let's just pick up the character models are exactly the same as the NPCs. These people are pretty mobile. See if you can find a quest giver. There's normally some inside the main building. Obviously, you may notice this is San Francisco.
Yep.
Obviously, again, you saw it was a planet killer you just took down.
Yes.
All referencing major events in the shows. There you go. That is essentially what you look like in game. And the customization can be everything, absolutely everything. And you can customize your bridge crew to the same level. Some of them are preset. They don't get customized. I think you'll find your Jemadar, you can look at your ship crew this way. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
There you go. You've got various characters. You see the quality.
Well, you can see that some of them have specializations, that there are purple, green, and blue characters, essentially. And so this guy, he's a special. He has a specialization, but he's only a white text sort of character.
Yeah, there's interesting things. If I remember correctly, humans. If you go across the ray, I'm sorry, I'm looking. Their abilities. Do they have?
Yes, they.
Ground, space, and.
Yep, it's sort of difficult to navigate, but once you get used to where they all are.
Where's their passives? Oh no, that was it. Away team, ground. No, go back. Oh man.
Is this what these are their stationed abilities on the ship?
No, they have passives as well. This is where you
can see officer traits.
Yeah, officer traits. So interesting things. Some of them are better on ground missions. This is something Gary may not have explored too much because it isn't immediately evident, especially the way they've had to menu a lot of this stuff, so it gets buried. Now go back to the last character. Who was that? You get superior traits. You see the variables.
Yes. Yeah.
The superior version. There's a middle version and there's a standard version.
Yeah.
If you go to the human character, you've got one on your bridge. There's an Ellis Flores. Yeah. Humans have leadership, which gives you a space ability. They always have leadership.
Yeah.
Which it makes humans quite a reliably useful race because they generally have something for space. Which, as we said, space is pretty dominant in the game. There are other. Efficiency, if you buy the lifetime sub, I think you get Borg bridge crew. No, you don't. You are a Borg. That gives you some passives. There is on the marketplace. I pre-ordered the game, so I got the Borg bridge officer as a pre-order bonus, and then it eventually all my characters have one whenever I make them. She has a trait called efficiency, which does another benefit. I think it's power levels. My memory's a bit fuzzy. I just know I have them on the ship because they're needed for space combat. But again, there's so many wonderful mechanics to this. We could go on for hours.
Absolutely. Well, we've gone over time, so I'm just going to say my final thoughts on it are that it's fun and it's free. And if you like space combat, a passing interest in Star Trek, you have to give it a go. Have a look at it. Play the space combat for a couple hours. See how you feel. If not, no big deal. You didn't lose any money. Just a couple of hours.
And if you do enjoy it, give them a bit of money, because there's so many things you can do with the game. I mean,
I would only say give them some money if you have it in your pocket, and if there is something in the game that you know, if you are going to play the game and enjoy it, then maybe
when you
can
played
do
40
so.
hours, maybe give them. Well, then you probably should give them some money, because I feel bad at that point, because people have spent $60 on things that. Or £40, sorry, £60, $80. I don't know. I'm not quite sure of the conversion rate in the US sometimes, but you buy full price tiles and people return them. It's trade them in a week, and it's if you play 40 hours of a free to play game, got to think of it like that.
Sorry, one last thing I want to actually diss about the game is the music. For the first couple of hours, the game's music is great. After a while, hearing the same musical riffs kind of gets a little bit redundant, kind of grates to the point where you want to turn the music off.
You've got a fair point there.
And then load up your computer, put on the greatest sci-fi soundtracks of all time, put on the Star Trek soundtrack, put on the Alien soundtrack, put on the Battlestar Galactica soundtrack, put on any soundtrack you want, get into some space battles, and it's almost gaming bliss for Starship Combat.
But do if you do enjoy it, I'm going to advise Gary this one as well. Play through the other factions, especially Klingon, because the story's entirely different.
Absolutely. It's a whole different campaign which you cannot access as a Federation player.
Near the end, obviously all the factions are coming together to fight bigger bad guys, so it brings all the factions together.
Yep.
That's bugging out weird. Let's ignore the minor bug. That was clever.
Well, they did say that they are going to patch the game soon. There's a couple of visual glitches in the game. I have had the game, it's not crashed on me, but it has kicked me out. I've disconnected to the servers. I've had a couple of instances where some of the campaign missions have bugged out, where me and a friend have had to abort the mission and restart the mission in order to play it.
I'm going to say that happens sometimes.
That does happen in a lot of games though, but there are some missions in this where you're having a dialogue with someone, you say the wrong thing and the character goes, right, game over, mission aborted, you have to go replay the whole mission again.
They punish you for doing stupid.
Yes, sometimes they punish you for it.
There's sometimes a little bit, I don't know, that's funny. You're meant to be diplomatic and you failed to be diplomatic. Well, you failed.
Yes. So the multiple choice dialogue options, it's kind of funny, it's kind of there, but the visual
there are
glitches.
A few puzzle bit levels, but again, as we said, this game's so vast and there's so much quantifiable stuff we could go on about. It is just a good game. I think if you get into it in the first couple of hours, you're going to, as we said, 40 plus hours of just single player content.
Definitely.
If you enjoy the actual competitive or the hard end PvE content where it's actually tough as hell, where borderline, it's not raised to an extent if you know the equivalent in Warcraft or Neverwinter, or the equivalents like that. It is probably one of the best free to play experiences I've had, because you don't feel like you need to spend money to enjoy it. I mean, there are quality of life options, but nothing game changing.
Well, that's it from us here on Off the Shelf Reviews. We'll be back next Friday with another video game, of course. Another graphical glitch there. And of course, next week we'll start our Halloween marathon of movies. So look forward to seeing you all next week for those. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.